everyone. Welcome to my podcast, Season 1, Episode 4, The Knitting Equestrian Nomad. So the title of today's podcast is Tired of Saying Wow, and I'll explain that later. This is Season 1, Episode 4. My name is Corrina, and I live in Western Washington State with my partner, our two kitties who may make an appearance as they're here with me right now, and two horses. Today is May 29, 2022. It's still spring here. We have had a late spring, and the weather is still rainy, but it's warmer than the first few weeks of May. So my garden and pastures are showing some signs of life, for which I'm very grateful. Welcome, everyone, and if you're returning, which I hope some of you are, welcome back. For new listeners, this podcast is primarily about my knitting projects, my two horses, Odin and Bragi the Mustangs. Odin is a gelding. Oh, I've got one of the kitties coming up. Odin is a gelding from the Cold Springs herd management area, which is located in Oregon, Eastern Oregon. And Bragi is a gelding from the Warm Springs herd management area, also in Oregon, but more central Oregon. I had adopted Odin from the Bureau of Land Management program in 2018. He was in a Mustang makeover event, which means that a trainer got him from the Burns, Oregon wild horse corrals and trained him for 100 days prior to the competition, and I attended that event, watched him perform, and bid on him in the auction and won him. So I'm very happy with him. Again, that was 2018, so I've had him for just about 4 years now, and he is my primary riding horse. We do mostly just trail riding. I shouldn't say just trail riding, because trail riding is it's not within the confines of an arena or a barn or any fenced area. So you have to admire trail riders, even though many trail riders say I'm just a trail rider, as if that is nothing special. But actually you have to be quite brave to be on a trail, because there can be all sorts of scary things out there on trails, either real or imagined, and your horse could possibly run away with you or without you, which would be even worse. So I have a lot of respect for trail riders, and try to get out there myself as much as possible. I adopted Bragi in 2020, March of 2020, after I lost a thoroughbred to colic, and Odin needed a buddy. So I knew I wanted another Mustang. So I got Bragi from a what's called a TIP program. Both the TIP program and the Mustang makeover events can be found on the Mustang Heritage Foundation website, and I hope to remember to put that link in the description box below. Bragi is just 4. I've had him for 2 years now, so I got him when he was 2, and he's grown a lot. He's matured a lot. I have found that Mustangs mature a bit slower than domestic horses. So Odin kept growing until he was about 7, and he really bulked out and muscled up quite a bit. Bragi continues to grow, so I don't have him started under saddle or anything like that. He's just learning how to be a good citizen, and in my opinion, that is the best thing anyone can do for a horse, is teach them how to be a good citizen. Okay, so those are my horses. I will get on to knitting, and I will describe this little scarf cowl thing I have on here shortly, but I'd like to talk about some recent life events first. Vacation. We took a vacation. So a week ago Friday, we left mid-afternoon and headed east from here. We live on the west side of the Cascades, north of Seattle. And our first stop was in Yakima, which is in central Washington. We visited friends we hadn't seen since before COVID, and that was our first stop for the night. The next morning, we visited the Yakima Arboretum. I think it's officially called the Yakima Area Arboretum, which was it was a really neat place. It's near the freeway, so very convenient to stop and stretch your legs and walk around the different garden areas that they have set up. My favorite part of the garden was the Japanese garden. I am a huge fan of Japanese gardens and would love to establish one here in our yard. So I try to get lots of ideas from places like that. So and also the Arboretum is right along the Yakima River, so it's possible to see birds and other wildlife if that is what you like to do. I will provide a link in the description box for the Yakima Arboretum in case anyone's interested in visiting, or I just encourage you to visit any local arboretum. When I was in graduate school at University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, there was a really neat arboretum on campus. So many places have arboretums, many universities or cities. It's a wonderful place to see native plants and learn about plants. After the Yakima Arboretum, we continued our journey on to Oregon. That was our destination, was to explore Eastern Oregon. If you've not been before, Oregon is especially in my opinion, all of Oregon is wonderful, but I have a very special place in my heart for Eastern Oregon. I worked there in 1994 at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and that was one of our planned stops. And I'll talk about that probably in a subsequent episode because I don't want this episode to be entirely about our vacation. I do want to talk about knitting since that's what this podcast is about. But anyway, the second day of our trip, that was the day of wow. And my partner actually said, I am tired of saying wow. It's like, that is awesome. That is a great problem to have. So we camped at, we found a campsite at Cottonwood Canyon State Park, which is a relatively new state park. It was established in 2013, and it is right on the John Day River, a scenic portion of the John Day River. Probably all of the John Day River is scenic. It flows, I can't remember where the origin of the John Day River is, although I did read about it while we were on our trip. But it flows north into the Columbia River. That Cottonwood Canyon State Park is near Wasco, W-A-S-C-O. I'm not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I pronounce everything as if it's Northwestern, and which I suppose this should be, so we pronounce our A's as an A, Wasco. So, however, the people of the town may correct me on that, and that is fine. I am happy to be corrected if I am not pronouncing it correctly. So that day we also went to the John Day fossil beds. There's several units of it, and we went to the Clarno unit, which has its emphasis is on the fossils, and they have a trail that goes through some areas where you can see fossils. Unfortunately, I hadn't intended to go to that unit. We just ended up there. So we didn't really know what we were looking at until till later. So now that's going to have to be a stop on future trips, which is totally fine. Again, a good problem to have. Where I had intended to go, which was about 45 minutes away, was the Painted Hills unit, and that is absolutely stunning. The hills look like they are literally painted with just different colors, and it has to do with the geology and the erosion and the content of the substrate. So absolutely fabulous. I hope to put some video and maybe some photos I took while on our trip at the end of this episode. But please bear with me. I'm a new podcaster and I'm just learning all of these skills. So I'll do my best. But I think that's all I'll talk about our vacation right now. I will talk about subsequent days on our vacation in future episodes. Mostly so I can keep this episode to a reasonable time and also keep the memories alive of our vacation, because it was completely wonderful, and I hope we do it again next year. So the rest of life stuff, what has been going on? So we had a major bathroom remodel that's off our bedroom. So it is finished except for the shower glass. So we knew that the shower glass was going to take about 3 weeks once the final measurements were done. So we are waiting for that. Hopefully that'll be, we will have that in mid-June. If I didn't mention it before, the reason for the remodel is that our shower leaked and popped up the tile over the radiant floor heating. So we thought we had a major issue with the leak, and thought that subfloor would have to be replaced. We were lucky in that the leak wasn't that bad. So now we have just a new modern bathroom, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, we would have never done that. We are not fashion forward people. We will, I guess, put up with or adjust to whatever the situation is that we have until it needs a major repair. So no structure damage. We will address that as soon as we possibly can. Gardening. So the other thing that I've been up to, my little porch tomato, which is an orange hat. I think it's an heirloom variety, but it's just a cute little plant. I wasn't entirely sure it was going to live because we've had cold overnight temperatures. I spent a lot of time coddling this tomato. This plant, I would bring it in at night and put it out during the day, bring it in at night, and was just really watching the temperature. We had a lot of days and nights under 45 degrees, and even down to freezing, even this late in May. So finally I put a little tiny cloche over it. So basically I cut the bottom of a clear plastic water bottle and put that over the top and put some breather holes in it, and that seemed to really help it along. Plus the temperatures finally started warming up, and the tomato plant has decided to live. So I'm hoping to get it some companions here shortly, but I'm going to have to buy some established plants, as it is way too late to really start tomatoes from seed at this point. My potatoes finally sprouted. I really wasn't sure if they were just rotting in the soil or what was happening, but when we returned from vacation, we had some little green plants coming up from the potatoes I planted. I'm going to have to replant the zucchini, as the seeds I planted a few weeks ago are just really not showing any signs of life. So it's possible I could get very abundant zucchini, which is fine. We like it. We like like it stir-fried, mostly. Sometimes we'll make zucchini noodles instead of using pasta. That's a good way to use zucchini. And when all else fails, we can make one of my favorite recipes to use zucchini is a double chocolate zucchini cake. So it is delicious and uses a lot of zucchini. The rhubarb is up and is doing well. It hopefully will be ready to harvest in the next week or so. The horses were on vacation. Normally at this time I add something that I did with the horses, but they were on vacation while we were on vacation, so they enjoyed some quality pasture time. I have just spending a little bit of time with them out in the pasture, and they're just really good boys. They even if they're grazing, they do like to come up to me and see what I'm up to. I use positive reinforcement, which means that I give them a treat if they have done something that I asked. For instance, if I call them and they come to me, I give them a treat. So that is something that they are more than happy to do. And even if it means I'm taking them out of their lush green pasture, I provide them with hay and other goodies to help keep them motivated. One other thing that happened, I'm looking out the window right now and I see a robin on the garage, top of the garage roof, chirping away. Yesterday when I was out cleaning out at my barn in the back there, I was checking the horse's water and I noticed this young bird on top of the water, but it's but not out of the water. So I think it must have fell in there or was trying to get a drink of water, which I'm not really sure why it would choose the horse trough since there's plenty of puddles and whatnot around. But anyway, it was stuck in the horse trough and it seemed really cold, so I picked it up and its legs were kind of splayed out straight behind it. It was a fat little robin, which I hope is really good news. So I picked it up, kind of folded its legs back under it, and wrapped it in a small cloth that I had in the barn, a clean one, and tried to warm it up with my hands, but it just didn't seem to be responding very well. So I decided I would take it to the Sarvey Wildlife Care Center, which is about 11 miles away from here. It's an established wildlife hospital, I guess you could say. A few years ago, I found a barred owl on the road. It had been hit by a car, and it was kind of dazed. So I picked it up and stuffed it in a laundry hamper that I happened to have in my car, and took it there. And the good news is that the owl was able to be rehabilitated and then released. So that's what I'm hoping for this little baby robin, or it's not a baby. It's probably recently fledged is my guess. It still had speckles on its back rather than the complete dark feathers. So anyway, I dropped it off there, and I'm hoping that the robin recovers and that they'll bring it back here to release, because that's what they do. They always hope to release it in the area in which it was found. And hopefully I'll have more news on that. I mean, I always have to be aware that, these animals don't always survive, but if we can do our best and help them along, that's what we try to do. So Sarvey, I think it's sarveywildlife.org. Sarvey is Sarvey, and I will again hopefully try to remember to put that in the description box. Finally, on to knitting. So the knitting segment, I'm looking at my notes here, is it features old projects, new finished projects, and projects I'm learning from or struggling with, what's projects on the needles, and also any new acquisitions, which I'll talk about new acquisitions later as I'm trying to work down my stash yarn. So, finally, I'll talk about this little project. This is just a little scarf thingy. I'm wearing a shirt that has my name. It has my thoroughbred that passed away. Winterproof was his jockey club name, and then Odin and Bragi. A friend of mine embroidered these on here. But this little scarf, it has a little button. So this project came from a kit, and it is from a Jimmy Beans wool, and I'll put that link in the description box. Jimmy Beans wool has these nifty little subscriptions, accessory subscriptions. And here is a bag from one that I haven't done yet. So I subscribe to their accessories club. Oh gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now, and they make great little gifts. And what you get is this nifty little pouch. So you could give this away to a knitter or a craft person if you like. What you also get is, get this out of here, is you get this postcard that describes the project. So in this particular case, which I have not knitted yet, is a knitted bookmark. And then you get enough yarn for 2 projects. Well, at least this one has 2 projects. So so this card has a description. So it has 20-yard samples of 4 yarns, and it includes the knit and crochet patterns for these, what they're calling stay put bookmarks. So here is the pattern, and this is the knit one. There's also a crochet if you don't knit. And you get 2 coconut buttons, which, let me get those out. And then 2 stretchy things. Sorry for all the crinkling about this. So here are the coconut buttons and the stretchy things that secure, let's see if you can see those, secure, they're kind of like ponytail holders, that secure the bookmark to the page. So I'm actually glad I dug this one out, because I will definitely make this for myself and possibly another for a gift. So the yarns that I got, again, 20 yards each, and you get a little hand note, hand wound with love. So all of these are hand wound. And also you get a little packet of wool soak. So onto the yarn. Let's see what this is. It's pretty color. This is a lace weight yarn, and this is Fiber Spates Scrumptious Lace. It's 45% silk, 55% merino, and it's called 502 Gold. So, and then get this one, which maybe this was the hand wound with love. So this is pretty variegated. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to match these. These are cool. And then this gray one. Actually, this postcard has the description, so I could just read that because that is easier. So Madeline Tosh Twist Light and Spud and Clove Fine are fingering weight yarns with medium twist. Oh, okay. So I thought it was lace weight, but it looks like fingering weight. And then this color as well. So all 4 together. So having a hard time showing the gold here. There we go. Yeah. So, well, these will be fun. I'm gonna have to figure out which color combination. I just dropped one of them, the pretty gold one, and oh, here it is. I don't want my cats to get it. One of the cats, Herbert, is a yarn murderer, so I have to keep my yarn secure. But anyway, this was a really fun subscription, and if I wasn't on a yarn diet right now, I would probably do it again. But I am on a yarn diet because I have plenty of stash and plenty of project ideas. Okay, so this is this one. What else do I have going on? Also on my needles right now, so I have the Yarnspiration sock. So this is the second sock. I started this just was it yesterday? Might have been Friday, I'm not sure. So that's the second sock. I can show you the first sock. This project is made out of Patton's Croy yarn, so just plain old good, workaday sock. And this is what I knitted on while I was on vacation. I didn't have much of it done. Might have had the heel flap and gusset done, I'm not sure. But this pattern is by Yarnspirations. It's a free pattern, uses Patton Croy yarn, which is slightly heavier than fingering weight, so you want to make sure you use the needles prescribed. I'm using 2.75 millimeters. I tried this on 2.5 and it just ended up being a really dense sock. I mean, these are going to be very warm socks, so not for summer. I use the Addie's Flexi Flips needles for these, which I really like. I'm also not opposed to using Magic Loop. I just happen to like these. What else do I have going on? I'm still working on my, I don't have any fancy project bags. These are just bags that I happen to have. I do have two very nice, or actually three very nice project bags that have probably occupied with something else. So this is a raglan sweater. I'm still working on, basically, it's a top down. I'm still basically working on the, I guess the yoke, doing the increases. I'm getting close to being able to divide for sleeves. I just want to make sure, here we go. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that it's big enough before I divide for sleeves, because I have made that mistake, and I will talk about that shortly. So this is just a variegated yarn, or a self-striping yarn. It's Wool Ease. So it's a DK Cake, Lion brand. This is 80% acrylic. I do prefer natural fibers, but this yarn is stash yarn that I just picked up or someone gave to me or something like that. So I'm just using it. Trying to use patterns that are appropriate for it. But once I finish that second sock, I'll get going on that sweater some more. And then I am working on an Arne and Carlos knit along, the spring along. I'm doing the knitted version of the blanket. So I haven't made a ton of progress on this. I have, again, not a very fancy I Love Dirt bag, but so I think I showed this last time. This is the Faro square. So yeah, this was my first experience doing color work in purling. So I think by the end I figured out how to carry the floats a little bit better. And I'm on the second square, which is a dove. And try so there, yeah. So I'm getting close to getting done with this one. So yeah, I'm using their Rowan wool yarn for this. So I don't know, I'm not in a huge hurry to get the blanket done. So that's just something I do it's pretty good TV watching. If you're okay with color work, knitting left and holding yarn in your left and right hands, which I'm getting a lot better at. So last time I talked about this hat, I made it out of a peach acrylic yarn. Well, I knitted it twice. The first time I knitted it, it was too small, so I ripped it out, knitted it, cast on more stitches. It was still too small, so I'm going to have to rethink it. I'm using a pattern by Mina Phillip of the Knitting Expat. She has a podcast. Her pattern is for a cowl. It's called the Road Whipping Cowl. It's a free pattern. And I thought I would turn it into a hat instead. The yarn for the pattern is it's a folded, I think it's a folded over cowl if I understand the pattern correctly, and it's used fingering weight. Well, I have this it's probably worsted weight yarn that I'm just trying to use up. And I did make one hat out of one pattern of the cowl that turned out fine. But this cable pattern that I really, I enjoy knitting cables. So it's a bit frustrating that the hat keeps coming out smaller even though I'm using a standard hat pattern that has worked for other hats. So anyway, I ripped it out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll make it, maybe I'll just make it a big cowl. So although I'm not sure I have enough yarn for that, so I'll have to think on that. But more to come on that once I make a decision. And then also still on the needles is my Ghost Horses, which is a Caitlin Hunter project. I need to rip back to where I divided for sleeves because the cowl or the yoke is too small for me. So I just need to add more rows. I love Caitlin Hunter's pattern. She's a magnificent designer. What I wish that she would do is just add some measurements to the pattern. So it seems like that is something that a designer should do for the pattern, is add some measurements. But, live and learn. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing that easy raglan sweater, is so that I do have good measurements for the yoke, so that I will, when I do rip back the Ghost Horses color work yoke, I will have a target measurement for that yoke. All right, acquisitions. So I'm pleased to report that I did not buy any yarn while I was on vacation. That's typically when I kind of go yarn crazy, is when I'm traveling or out of town. There were 2 yarn stores that I had in mind when we were traveling. One was in Bend, Oregon, and the other was in Ellensburg, Washington, which was our last night on our trip. I just wasn't motivated to shop, so that's good, since my goal this year is to use as much stash yarn as possible. Maybe one of these episodes I'll dig out my stash yarn and show, which, really looking at other knitters' stash, there's a lot of knitters who have way more than I do, but I just like to use what I have, so that's what I'm going to do. So my recent inspiration for horsemanship and knitting and gardening. So I listened to a podcast by Carly Cade. I have the link in the description box below. She does a podcast on the Equestrian Author Spotlight is the name of it, and she is an equestrian author. If you like horse books, you can read her books, and she also interviews a lot of other equestrian authors, which is really fun. For gardening, my favorite one is Grow Veg podcast. It's British. The host is British, and the climate appears to be very similar to what we have here in Western Washington, so it's very useful. And I have that link also in the description box. So I'm watching Herbert trying to get into one of my yarn bags, trying to figure out how to get in it. So he loves yarn, wool in particular. He tends to leave acrylic alone, but I don't trust him anymore. Another knitting one is Kutovakika. I'm sure she says she does say it much more smoothly. She is from a designer from Finland. She has some really neat designs and some neat inspiration. Oh, he is trying to get in too. Yes, hi, you little stinker. Yeah, well, maybe I'll get him up here and we'll introduce Herbert. Yes, come here. Oh, I know. Oh, he's just getting so big too. So here he is. This is Herbert. This is my little yarn murderer. Yes, my little yarn murderer. So anyway, the Danish knitwear designer, no, Finnish, sorry, knitwear designer. I will put the link to her podcast in the show notes. I gotta hold on to you while my yarn is exposed. And then finally, other inspiration, Dan and Kay Jones, the Bakery Bears. I'm actually a patron of theirs. They are also British, and I put a link also in the description box. He doesn't want to be held. He wants to go murder some yarn. Okay, and finally, where I can be found. On Facebook, I'm the Equestrian Nomad. On Instagram, I am CM Nomad, so it's CMEQNOMAD. One of these days I'll explain the Equestrian Nomad in my titles. My blog is equestriannomad.net. I will post show notes there. And then my email is theequestriannomad@gmail.com, and all that will be in the description box. So thank you for listening. If you like this, please subscribe and turn on your notifications and give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, I am happy to hear them, and see you next time. You want to say bye, Herbert? Bye. All right. All right, there you go. Goodbye. Yakima Arboretum.